Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Statements of nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing on our agenda is a discussion of the potential ground scanning of the Flint House property. Trustee Solochuk and I met with our historian last week. George, was it?
Yeah, I wish I could, I was trying to get the documents because I did put a bunch of information
Yes.
in there in the drive. I don't know if anybody had a chance to review it, just kind of about the technology. And then kind of the tax maps that showed it's 4.5 acres and it's pretty much all of the green space down there that butts up to the back. If you look at it from the Google picture, and I can bring that up and just, I was hoping to get a little bit of a better detail on the property line, but I couldn't come up with it right away. But the idea is just we have the opportunity to get a free service from somebody who's interested in the technology, and that's really what it is. Our decision is kind of, do we want to do that? What would be the purpose of it long term? And I think it doesn't really define any of the path forward per se, or it doesn't really pigeonhole us into. It doesn't really pigeonhole us into that sort of decision, but all it would be is, information on kind of some of the restrictions that might be there for when we do have to make a decision on what kind of the path forward would be. So yeah, if we're looking at this right here, the property really just is, all of these backyards over to here, angled down into, so right up against, pretty much all the way to the river per se is like the property line if you look at it on the tax map. And then, this is the other side of the border. So everything within this area would be what would have the probability to be scanned. Now, obviously, we have a couple of restrictions here where the village garden is. So, you know, we can go up and down those rows, or, you know, we have an opportunity to have, you know, essentially a free service. So, we do need permission to do that. We will need to put kind of I would think a little verbal scope of work together, defining the areas and then the gentleman who offered the service is available anytime, weather permitting, you know, from now until, you know, whenever we want to do it, so.
Yeah, and I think the historian said that he'd even do it in the spring if
Yeah.
he decided that he'd rather.
Does it matter the time of year? Go ahead and do that, plan on doing it?
I think just logistically, having the experiences I have with, you know, some of these technologies, it's more of it's better now that the ground is, you know, open rather than trying to push it over snow. So, you know, I think the only restriction, and super cold days and batteries don't work really well. So I think it would be more of a temperate day, depending on the gentleman and what he feels comfortable with.
Do we know how long the process will take?
I don't know, should I bring up that? Because I have it, if anybody has it on their phones, you can kind of look at.
I think we're gonna release that.
Yeah, and then I put a couple other things in there.
So I think the question would
The
be,
decision is made tonight, we could start tomorrow if there's no objections. There would be possibly 2 or 3 sessions, a couple hours or so.
Are you reading that from something, or is that?
Yeah, that's the email that
Oh, perfect.
Beverly, Beverly sent.
Yeah, I put all that in the folder too, so.
That's dated September 10th. 5:20.
So basically, you know, what me personally, what I would like to see out of it, is there any, you know, concrete structures or other things that we need to avoid if there is some sort of land use or land reuse? If there is a, you know, change in the structures, there'll be heavy equipment there. If there's a school project, either, you know, community college or high school that wants to do some sort of historical digging, we can kind of give them a framework for where it would be most fruitful from this information. I don't really see anything wrong with it. You know, it's just really going to give us, you know, more visibility on the property without any defining factor in the long run, which I think is good to have. If it was costing a significant amount of money, I would have to say no at this point. But since it's being offered at no charge to us, I think it would be beneficial to have that information rather than not having it.
so I just wanted to make one thing clear, and then we'll go through some comments. This is nothing to do with the Flint house. This is the property that's where the Flint house resides, but it's, when George and I were speaking with her, we were pretty clear that this has nothing to do with that decision in that those perspectives. This is what's on that land for future use.
Yeah, strictly exterior to the building. It doesn't, you know, in any way modify our path forward to really, we don't have one right now, so.
I mean, if anything, I'll just lead and say, if anything, having this ground penetrating radar evaluation now will help us plan in the future. You know, we know that there is some on paper documented history of that land, which does make, you know, planning parkland difficult. So say we wanted to build a pavilion or a playset, and we start digging, and then suddenly we find indigenous bones, or it becomes an archaeological site, or there was the Great Scotia woolly mammoth. We joke about that, but that happens in areas. And next thing you know, our park development plan is either amended or more expensive. So here, having this information ahead of time will allow us to have reasonable expectations for what this this parkland can do.
Yes, with regards to proceeding, the determination whether it should be done now, as in tomorrow, just weather permitting, as trustee Soul stated. I don't know, with the weather that we've been having, if that plays a role or this should be put off until the springtime, but I'm in favor of proceeding.
Yeah, I don't know as if it's necessary for us to put a time restriction on it, in the sense that whenever the gentleman feels comfortable on doing it, he contacts us and says, hey, we're gonna be down there, right, Brian? Is that okay with you guys? We're gonna be there, we're not gonna, and then, we'll call when we're done. So that anybody, if we can get a schedule, we can put it on a village website, that says, hey, we're doing some investigative stuff on there, no cost to, thankfully, no cost to the village, and gives us visibility on it, so.
Is it just him?
Yep, from my understanding, it's him and a tool. The
He's
tool-
offering this, it's free service.
Yeah.
Is there still any type of agreement?
We have to get an agreement in place.
Yeah, just,
No insurance.
That's a question.
You know, what happens if he gets injured,
Yep.
machinery?
It was sort of that was sort of my thinking around later.
and part of the agreement too can say, at your own, like anybody could go down there and walk around. I don't know how that fits into the scope of work, if we say, at your own risk type of thing, don't.
Is it big equipment or?
No, it's like like a push lawnmower. It's like a lawnmower that rolls along the ground. I would kind of like everybody's thoughts on, where to go, where to stay out of, unless you don't think there's a need for that, because it's all, I think kind of this upper half of the property will be a little bit more intriguing to start with. But I mean, if there's any thoughts on giving guidance to the,
I wouldn't see any reason to restrict, because at the end of the day, if the purpose of this is archaeological, to document the history
Yeah.
or potentially lack of history, of the parcel, like, to me, it only yields information to inform our decisions in the future.
Yep.
And frankly, I'd rather know what's there now, than when we're actually digging. So, and this is a non-invasive way of doing that. How many feet does I saw he just put the front cover of the user manual. How many feet does this go down? Is it like 5 feet? Is it 30 feet?
I thought, do you remember, George? Was it?
yeah, no, I don't remember.
I
I
don't
still look
remember.
at
I read
it.
it. I don't remember. I do think, we do have to get an agreement in place.
Did he send a proposal or?
No, that it was more just an email offering, but we have to get a proposal in place. Identifying the area, which is essentially gonna be the boundaries of,
Right,
Our
and
boundaries.
he needs to know where those boundaries are,
Yeah.
and those boundaries probably should be marked for him, because what we don't want to do is do ground penetrating radar on private property.
George did a nice job with that map that showed.
Yeah, I wish I could show it, but it's Brian, how would we mark the corners? And just take our tax map and just kind of bang in poles.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep it inside ours. It doesn't have to really
Yeah.
be right to the edge.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious when you look at the property lines. I just couldn't, I don't know why I couldn't find an overlay for the property line on the satellite map. I'm feeling like I'm a little bit, failing a little bit in my GPI, my
GIS.
No, I have that, and I was looking for the layers so I could manipulate them myself, but,
So trustee Brown, I didn't turn to you.
More information is good. I think this will verify what we all expect to find, which is the property clearly has historical value. I'm sure they'll find foundations for old structures and miscellaneous things on there. I think the two concerns I have, number one, are what happens in terms of village responsibility, depending on what's found. There's specific responsibilities for graves, graveyards, old cemeteries, things like that, that then the village will have to have some responsibility for. I think communicating the results out to the public will be very important because I still think we're in a bit of a narrative problem around the difference between the structure that's there that has very real concerns that we have to deal with and the property as a whole. So I think it would be great to find out, yes, in fact, what we all think we know about the property is true. I still think we have a building structure issue that we have not had an update from the group of residents that are organizing to try to do something about that structure. So I would really welcome an update from them on that. I think the longer we wait for them to take action, the more deteriorated the building becomes, the more of a hazard it becomes, the more potentially expensive it becomes for the village and anyone else
you mean
that might be involved.
the group that's forming, back forming, reforming, is that what you're talking about?
Yup.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure they're doing either.
So,
They're trying to
so-
put people together.
There was-
so I just want to put out there now that the problem we're going to have is that this is likely to find a bunch of stuff, which we all know about. And then there'll be a big save the Flint house effort that happens again, where people are like mad at us because we're potentially erasing the village's history, even though the history is probably in the property and in the land, and the building itself still has questionable significance. And I am still 100% against spending a penny of village dollars towards that building, towards that structure, period.
So I will say that the historian was very receptive to the concept that this has nothing to do with the bill.
Great. Let's make sure we're all on the same page
Yes.
moving forward.
And-
I have a question regarding a very real possibility. So one of the Flint House discussions, it was related from a neighboring property that there was potentially at some point in the course of documented history, a graves, like cemetery
Yeah.
on the Flint House property. Trustee Brown brings a very good reality of, okay, we find said cemetery, it's in the middle of the dog park, then what?
Mhm.
I think we don't have to do anything with it.
That is not true.
Really?
There is a whole set of regulations when you locate graves, you locate a graveyard, there's a whole set of regulations. I will take this hat on and put my day hat on and say, I just got a big education in this one,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
when the
But is that,
body in the iron casket was discovered. So there are all sorts of regulations. The state can step in and take jurisdiction and then dictate what happens there. There's a whole set of things that happen. Just again, knowledge is good. We should probably know. We should all just be aware that there are very likely scenarios or potential scenarios. We had residents who all were nodding in agreement that there's a story about people moving gravestones. Because
I will say that I was under the understanding that we were not going to go into the dog park because it's currently being used.
well, that's, no,
then that's why I'm saying we should set the parameters and say, if we're looking at the Flint House property, then we should be looking at the Flint House property, whatever the parameters are, but then I'll just say that then when we're saying in full transparency that we're going to limit the scope of trying to do this, then it sounds like we're trying to avoid the thing which we want, which is knowledge to decide what we want to do about things. So
Yeah, I mean,
Can I add, is it all of the things that are triggered as far as discovery and burial sites, isn't that after there is an actual disturbance?
no, if
Like,
you-
we can say there's a cemetery there all we want, we can walk over it and no problem, but if we identify where it is without disturbing it at all, I think that's when that triggers the response you're speaking, I think.
again, that there are entities that can then dictate what happens from that point forward. So we may say, hey, let's not disturb it, it's there, it's fine, but that's not, that could not be
So
our
they
decision.
could, and I'm asking, they could dictate us to have to,
So much of it depends on what this finds or what
Okay.
is,
maybe we don't do anything right now then.
Well,
I mean, seriously.
no, I seriously think we need to investigate it and move this towards.
And
Right.
there are basic, we had an issue recently with another cemetery and looking at that, there are situations where the municipality or a municipality can become responsible for a graveyard.
Right.
I don't know if this is would be one of them, if there is one, but it's.
Well, I think that's what, I mean, the point being is that I was just under the impression if we didn't disturb anything and we identified where it was, it gives us information to not disturb it moving forward. But if we are,
but my point is
know what I'm
you're
saying?
going a couple steps ahead. I'm just saying the concern is that if you find something, there are certain cases where there's other entities that have jurisdiction over that or require us to do certain things. And I'm just asking it as a question, like,
yeah,
are we prepared for whatever that happens?
Yeah.
Now, it very well may be that people say, hey, we think you're right. You may have found some graves. Leave them alone, don't touch them. And then that's fine. But I'm just saying we don't know that because it hasn't happened yet.
Okay,
I'm just gonna say this right off the bat. Set of remains, maybe it was a family burial site. More than two sets of remains, it's most likely a cemetery. And even if New York State comes back and says, hey, look, you don't have to disturb it. And say said remains, and it could be an indigenous burial site. Now we have a dog park on top of human remains. And I am morally opposed to a dog park being on top of a place that was once a burial site of human beings. So, and I think fast forwarding 150 years from now, wherever I'm buried, if a municipality decides to put a dog park over my remains, I would be pretty pissed off, and I hope my descendants would be as well. They become sacred spaces at that point, and not saying ignorance is bliss, but this sounds like a Pandora's box. And then worst case scenario financially, taking morality out of the equation, say we do find a very substantial graveyard burial site that extends into private property. And the state then says you have to relocate and or restore said burial site. Does the Village of Scotia have the resources to do such a thing?
no,
Then I say, I'm a no.
not without a project to do it with, right?
so I hate to say it this way.
Maybe we just need to do more investigation.
I think we need to investigate because we're making some assumptions. You have experience with it recently. You've had some past.
Are they working on that property again? You know, did they continue construction on that?
I've not had an update on that in a hot minute. Dave, if maybe I think that some of this could be answered by some questions about can we see a sample of what a report of one of these looks
Yeah.
like? Because it very well may be that they just say, look, here's what we found. There's
Something different.
There's masses in these spaces. They're about this size. We have no idea what they are. And then that's fine. At least that then it's probably not actionable because you're like, well, it could be this, it could be that. We don't know. Nobody's going to go digging around to see what they are. Let's just see some samples of what the reports look like. What are the limitations of one of these reports? What can it show? What can it show? Let's get a scope of work from the guy who's offering to do it. It's free. It could tell us an awful lot that I would love to know. I think we would like to know. It also just has some potential inherent risks depending on how detailed it can be and what they can show. Let's get a scope of work. Let's get some
We need a
details.
proposal.
We need
with
a
some
proposal.
samples Of what the work is.
And then we can have a
We also
better,
need to do some
and then we can have a
investigation
better
on what the
informed
rules are.
conversation.
That's the more important question
Yep.
is what are the rules, what are the different scenarios?
Yep.
And what is the risk threshold that we're going to have?
Yeah.
But at this point, I don't know.
So we can't move without those two
I
pieces.
will
in
work
place.
on getting the scope of work together. With
Okay.
the historian and the gentleman offering the service.
It seems
All right.
simple. It seems like a nice, good service we could do, but
Right. Yeah.
we got to get some details.
All right. Thank you all.
Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Need to be a wet
For the
blanket.
record, the cemetery stuff is very much myth and lore of neighbors.
But yeah,
No, yes, yes.
There is no documentation anywhere in New York State claiming there was a
Correct.
public
but
cemetery.
Right.
But for its worth, all the records of the situation that I just went through indicated that all of those graves were moved.
Yes.
Yes.
And no, they weren't.
So we did
So-
not build a dog park.
So just want to say, some of this stuff, people think things and they're just not true.
Chief, can you explain
That was fun.
the Argo?
The whole, the practically,
Please let everyone know what an Argo is. And
Is
then,
it Dalmatian? No. So the Schenectady County Emergency Fire Coordinator's Office has acquired a Argo. An Argo is a 8-wheel drive. They call it an XTV, so it's similar to a UTV, but there's 8 wheels to it. And they purchased this for county use. And they're looking for a host department to house it. Retired Chief Almy, who's the fire coordinator, talked to me about it. The Argo, it's 8-wheel drive. It drives similar to a skid steer. Everybody knows what a skid steer is. Or a tank. So it's 8 fixed axles. It turns like a tank. But it's an all-terrain vehicle that can go through almost anything. It floats. It can go on standing water. You don't want to take it on the river because it can self-propel in the water, but it would be battling against current. If it was in a river. Snow, everything. It can be used for a multitude of reasons. Pulling up. Yep. So they have essentially two different versions, a 6-wheel drive and an 8-wheel drive. This one's an 8-wheel drive. It's a 4-passenger with fold-down seats, so it can carry one stretcher on it.
Like that.
It's the red one.
Okay.
They probably make an EMS version, right?
It's like a fire EMS version, yes. It does have a roll cage on it. It comes with a set of tank treads that you use during winter months. It will go through snow better with the tank treads than
Stretcher.
wheels.
and it could go out on Collins Lake.
Yes. It has a trailer that it is housed in with the tank treads that are in it, and it's coming with the stretcher. So like I said, they want to house it here, and we can use it anytime we want for any activities we see fit. The only thing would be is if it gets requested or deployed to somewhere else, we would provide one person to get it there. And then it would be manned by the crews on the scene. But
And you said last year, it was like estimated to used to be 2 or 3 times for
yeah,
the full
they
year.
don't get used very often. Actually, we have several UTVs in the town, and they are used more frequently than the county does. Multiple agencies have similar things. I think it would be a huge benefit to us, essentially being no cost. We could use it for jumping jacks, fireworks. Currently, we have no way of getting out onto Collins Lake if there's an emergency out there. It's our boat. There's too much of a draft on our boat to get it into the lake. The last time that we had to go recover something out on the lake, we had to call Alquaz in. And I'm sure Ryan can contest, it's very shallow at the old boat launch. So they had to back their truck and trailer way out into the water to get that boat to, offload from the trailer. We would have been able, you can just drive it right out there. Go do what you gotta do and drive it right back up on shore.
So it's a
question-
value add to the village. There's no issue with like where it's stored. You guys wouldn't have to kind of work around it or shuffle vehicles or anything. There'd be no impact on response for here. But we would get priority use if it wasn't in use somewhere else.
Correct.
So
We
for
can use any.
Collins or whatever, and then potentially 2, maybe 3 times a year, we've got to have somebody bring it to scene,
Yep.
which is a scene we potentially could be responding to for mutual aid anyway.
Absolutely. It would be part of the mutual aid agreement. For
Got
the
it.
county that, we have to participate in. It's required.
Got it. And the guys feel,
They're all for it because it's a piece of equipment. I've been talking to the mayor about, the UTVs. And this is an opportunity to have the use of one that we're not paying for.
Well,
Right,
that's the
thank
thing,
you.
is are we responsible for maintenance, or are we responsible for repair? Are we
No,
responsible?
this is county equipment.
Okay.
We're responsible for safe storage and transport.
Is there any additional training that our team would need to?
I am going to approach the county, to get our guys, all of our guys, my entire, staff trained on it. And I don't know if that's you have the sales rep come in and give, I've never personally operated one. I've operated UTVs and ETVs, but never one of these.
Okay.
I would be very interested to learn how to operate it. And, I would ask the county to, possibly pay for a class to come in. An official class for training.
So we would have in place an agreement about its use and what it would do with a clause that allows us to get out of it if it's not working out.
Okay, so this would be housed on a permanent basis? Would this
Yep.
be an annual contract? Or would there be an
Ready to
expiration
look at
deadline?
the
I don't know if that's a question for me.
Well, has
I think it-
anyone discussed how long it would be housed in the village of Scotia?
Most likely permanently until we say we don't want it anymore. I know, speaking from experience, my previous, fire department, we used to house the, county's incident command, vehicle, C-100, 30 years ago. We had it for close to 10 years until the old one, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the old one. Every time you looked at it, something fell off it. And it was leaking everything. When we noticed that it was leaking oil and gas and potentially damaging.
So we
the
could, we'll
building.
put in place a contract period that can be renewed.
Well, I think it's like, I
I
mean,
think we keep it until, but there just needs to be something, doesn't even have to have dates on it, if it starts to interfere with our operation.
30-day termination notice.
Whatever
Yeah.
that date may be,
Yeah.
if it's 6 months, 16 years,
and is there anything,
we have the right to say, we don't want to hold it anymore.
Is the transport within just Schenectady County?
Well, it's the mutual aid agreement, so there's always the slim chance you could get pulled into anywhere, but that wouldn't be any different than now.
Anything else, yeah.
Scotia could get requests to go to New York City for another 9/11. Is that going to happen? You have less than a fraction of a percentage chance that would happen. It's mainly for Schenectady County.
and there might be language that talks about that stuff that we're looking to
Yeah.
put in the mutual aid agreement itself, that takes care of what we're talking about, creating.
I
a
mean,
new
if
document.
if you're looking to deploy this thing for days for some natural disaster, we can say, we don't have the staff
Right.
to
Right.
send somebody down there. You can come get it.
You can have
Absolutely.
it,
We'll have it sitting out front for you. You can come get it with one of your vehicles.
Or we'll bring it and leave it with you. you know?
similar to what we can do with
Yeah.
mutual aid. But
But
this one
it's
is,
not ready for service. It is currently being lettered and some emergency lights being put on it.
Yes, we can't do the holiday.
Trustee,
I love this thing, by the way. It fills a need. Collins Park Rescue is an incredibly important aspect. I want to remind people we are a riverside community, which means we are prone to flooding. And I can see this in a situation that, God forbid, another Hurricane Irene happened and folks will be rescued from their homes. This is something that can be used to go to the rescue. In addition, we are already deployed throughout the county through the mutual aid. So and we are paramedics, so the likelihood of us being activated in a significant issue where this would be required, we'd be going anyway. I appreciate the county thinking of us to house this equipment, and I'm a yay.
Need a motion?
I think we're gonna need an
no, we
agreement,
need an agreement in place.
whether it's an addendum to the mutual aid or, you know, something.
They probably have similar
Oh,
situations. that
absolutely.
they-
So, East Glenville has a UTV, and I actually just found out today, it's actually a county.
Yeah,
Can you speak to Ken then?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, who's got that task right now? Who's got the task to nail down?
Chief.
Okay,
I will say I'm disappointed it's not a Dalmatian, but a duck boat's even better.
God, it would be cool to kind of rip around the park a little bit. with it.
yeah, it would have been nice to have that.
Just remind everybody that flooding is not a if, but
Okay,
when.
so our next steps with this is Chief is gonna look into what kind of agreement or modification to the mutual aid agreement needs to take place for this to take place, and then we'll vote on accepting this at that point. Okay,
Yes.
but we want to move forward with the
Absolutely.
next step. Okay,
Thanks, Chief.
next on our agenda is the Animal Protector Foundation's request for a waiver. Last year we did this. Can you explain a little bit what they're asking?
Here, in order to help raise more money for their event, they're looking to waive the fee. Specifically, they stated for the vendor permit.
Because they charge the vendors themselves. So they don't wanna pay for it.
Is this
Is
what
there a
we,
date on that? Yeah.
Yes. June 7th.
I don't have a dog. It's a pretty cool event.
I stopped by last year with Axel, Woodstock was awesome. My question is, they're asking for the waiver on their vendor permit or the waiver for every vendor that goes there?
The vendors, that's how they're making the money, they say.
Great,
What did we do last year?
I just think we have a special event vendor permit process discussion that's outstanding for our own special events. So we require all our vendors for our own events to go through background checks and submit, IDs and all this rigmarole. But yet here, we are going to, do they still need to go through that process to get their license and vendor tags and all this stuff?
I thought my first thought was still charge them for the vendor permit fee. If we waive anything, maybe we waive the pavilion fee for them.
So that's where I was going with this, and some of our discussion about Holiday on the Ave has to do with people were sort of, scoffing a little bit at the fact that there's a fee to table at the event and there's a fee to the village. And I pointed out that our clerks spend an inordinate amount of time chasing people down for documents, answering questions, fielding all sorts of things. And so for me, I agree with you. If we're going to waive anything, I would be happy to waive the park fee, but I'm not pro waiving the permit fee. We can look at what we're whatever.
Amend it to
Amend
the
it.
$25.
Correct. We could amend it to the 25 we just agreed to do for Holiday on the Ave, or maybe to Trustee Cook's point, maybe during our larger special event permit discussion, we just say for special events, it's this amount, whatever, that's a later discussion.
Yeah.
But I'm pro waiving the use fee. I think we can talk about reducing the vendor permit fee, but I don't think we eliminate it.
So were they required to do it last year? I was just,
They
do
did do
They
everything.
did.
paid for everything.
we know how much it was, all in?
I don't know. I think there was about 11, looked like there may be 10 or 11.
Yeah, and look,
And just to, I'm sorry. It just needs to be very clear, and I think it was, but they didn't necessarily want to follow.
Yes.
It was very clear to them that there was going to be this vendor permit process but then it was, they didn't want to participate in that process. So I think it's really up to this event person to make it clear that
said
if they want to participate, this is what you'll have to do.
Right, and they'll be responsible for collecting everybody's things, all documentation, and bringing it to Raider's office for final approval. Have everything in order.
Oh.
so we should be prepared to expect this to be probably the last time we go to Woodstock then. Typically, if we had a better, well-defined, special event vendor permit in our village code that I've been asking for.
But this isn't a village special event.
Right.
I know, but I'm just saying, in how these typically work from the nonprofit side, because I've applied for and had vendors at fundraising events. The nonprofit entity takes out the vendor permit from the municipality, provides all the insurance and assumes all liability for the vendors in their specific special event. And they're also the ones responsible for vetting said vendors. So if a vendor comes in and rips a bunch of people off, the nonprofit who invited them there is liable anyway. So what it does is it puts the liability on the nonprofit to vet their vendors. Now, we can still restrict the type of vendors and what they're selling based upon our own rules, like silly string snaps, fake guns, stuff that could potentially damage the park. But we need to get to a point where we shift that responsibility to the nonprofit, reducing the red tape for the nonprofit, but more importantly, reducing the work for our village clerks. And the same process, needs to be streamlined for our own events. We are the only fireworks event that I've been able to find in the greater capital region that requires IDs for all vendors in there. And I know why we do it for door-to-door vendors. But for special events are typically treated differently than door-to-door vendors. So I once again call for the discussion to amend and update our village code to create a special events vendor permit.
So in terms of this request,
We have to work within the bounds of what's currently there. We can't waive all vendor fees because we incur expenses for running the background checks on the vendors. We incur expenses of time, but I'm just saying, you need to be prepared to lose Woodstock next year because if I was a nonprofit, I'd be like, see it.
12 months, we have our special permit change in place.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is we would consider waiving the fee for the park use. But we would continue the
I would
vendor
say
permit.
park use and Lions Pavilion.
I'll just say we lowered the Holiday on the Ave vendor permit fee to $25. If $25 is going to be the make or break for somebody to vend at an event in the village, then okay, I'm fine with it. I mean, it's $25. If you're a vendor and you're coming to make money at an event or promote your thing or whatever, $25 is nothing. So if that's going to lose us an event, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
I agree with you. But I do think we do have to have that discussion that.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
All right.
Trust me.
So we're not gonna waive.
Yes, we have to have that conversation. But we're okay with waiving the,
You want me to bring that back around to the board? Approval to waive.
Yeah, because I want to see if they may back out of the whole.
yeah, if they're okay with that, if they're going to back out of the whole thing, we don't have to do anything.
So waiving the park use fee
And reducing the
reducing
vendor
the
permits fee to
vendor fee.
25. Correct. Again, as long as we're all in agreement I mean, that's what we did for
Right, well,
Holiday
you
Inn the
have to
Abbott.
Understand our vendor permit is $25 for the vendor permit and then it's $5 per tag. So, and before reducing it to $25, it was $50 for the vendor permit and then $5 per tag. So we're actually, if you have 4 employees, that's another $20 on top of your $50, or in this case, another $20 on top of 25.
Are the tags good for a year or just for
No.
one event? Or just one event?
If you're door-to-door soliciting, it's good for a period of time, then you come back to renew, but again, we don't have a difference between a special events permit and a door-to-door vending permit. It's the same permit.
Okay.
Oh,
Update on Holiday Inn the Abbott, sir.
Where you want to start?
Let's start with the date.
Date was moved, so it gets off of the conflict with the group. Okay, just want to point out the group that's organizing it felt as if there would be a better quality event and would conflict less if it got away from the craft fair. So they decided to move it to the weekend after the craft fair. I'd have to look at my.
Yes, weekend after the craft fair.
So, so that's the date change. The group felt like rather than try to create continuity with the previous Facebook page and other things that were out there, that it would be easier because there are folks not involved anymore that hold the login and all that information, that they would start from scratch. So a new Facebook page was created. Vendors were solicited both through that and through separate efforts. They have all of the forms that vendors need to do. There was some complaining that happened from vendors that claimed that the village had no idea that the event was happening and that we were doing permits, which was not true. And we reduced the permit fee, as we just mentioned, to $25.
We'll do that motion tonight.
To do the fees.
Yeah.
Yep, great. So we've been processing them though, as if that's what we've been telling people. So for what it's worth, that's what it is. The event is charging people a small fee to vend at the event, and are seeking sponsors. So I have provided that group with all of the information that they need about what they need to do for us. I mentioned that the chief has submitted the request to close down Mohawk Avenue. And that Ryan and his team will handle the decorations as they have in the past of the light poles and all of that stuff. They, I think, are approaching a time where they'll be able to tell us kind of, where they might configure things. But that's where things are at.
The other thing was, we did have a long discussion about reducing the space that we've all talked about off and on, and they were not ready to do that this year.
Correct. They did not want to shorten the footprint this year, mainly because there's certain things that people are used to being in certain spots, and certain, I guess, businesses would rather keep it the same. I think that's something that's a TBD for next time. But the group, to their credit, there were people that stepped up last minute when it probably looked like the event would not happen, and are trying to organize it with a pretty quick turnaround. So I give that group a lot of credit for the work that they put in towards it. So I would, and I
A
want
bunch
to
of new faces.
bunch of new faces. And I really want to thank Maria, especially for all of the back and forth questions about things, about the permitting stuff and all the other
I
nuances of
did
it.
send an email just to confirm the email address so someone can respond.
Okay, great.
Is it the Gmail?
It's that holiday on the app.
It is.
Yeah, Gmail.
Okay.
or whatever.
I just wanted to add one thing that trustee Cook had asked me about. They are aware of what we will allow and not allow.
Yes, I outlined in an email to the group that we reserve the right to vet vendors that are coming in for the usual stuff. As you mentioned before, nothing political, nothing nothing overtly,
Well, symbols of hate.
symbols, right? And I mentioned that, like, nothing, nothing could be dangerous, you know, the usual kind of things. But basically I said, like, we reserve the right, and the vendors have to say what they're gonna be doing. So if somebody says they're gonna have stuff that might be questionable, the clerk's office has the right to ask questions and do all things.
And no walking up and down the street with,
No mobile
Yeah,
vendor.
no mobile.
no,
vendors.
yeah,
That
no.
was a big one.
No annoying disposable tchotchkes.
Is there, any conflict with the old Facebook page? Do we need to ensure that that's not gonna be misrepresenting the?
There is very little we can do likely about that. And then,
Well, if they're saying Village of Scotia, then
well,
We
it just
don't have
occurs
access
in the
to
Village of
town.
Scotia. It's not a sponsor, it's not our event, so
but they're not applying for like closing streets and stuff like that, or having their own little shindig.
Oh, no,
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 no, no, no. Most of those people, George, are at.
no,
Okay.
we're not in competing Holiday in the Inn territory thing.
Well, I mean, it's not
I know what you mean.
rehash the garage sale discussion.
Yeah.
Lord,
And like the trigger.
yeah, but I'm already triggered. Yes,
It's December 14th.
yes.
There's the
You're not
parade
about the
still. They're gonna do a
train
parade.
No, the high school.
All the
So-
normal stuff.
So let me ask the question that is the giant elephant.
Oh, Lord.
Is this a village special event? Or is it not a village special event?
I would answer that question as this is a transitional year where we're trying to manage the process on our side of things in a way that is responsible and
Aligned.
aligned with what we know we have to do. Especially because there's a lot of questions about some of the transition with sort of what happens with any funds that might have been raised. It sounds like we have a separate parallel conversation to try to untangle that a little bit.
Right.
So what I would say is that it is very timely that as soon as this event is over, that we prioritize our larger discussion about village special events, because I think there's a couple ways we could go with it. That's probably a larger conversation than.
And I say this.
I know the conversation you want to
I
have.
say this because it is possible to get access through a process through Meta to get access to the Facebook page. It's no different than if
Yeah.
a business gets sold from Google and you want to get access to the Google business page. There is a process by which they need to do it. You just need to show authority on the page.
Yeah.
And, so again, we brought this up, we've had discussions, and it remains unresolved on
I think
what is village special events.
if anything goes on that page, we will do that.
Yeah, it's been
Also,
dead. It's just been dead out there, the
Yeah.
old page.
This is the last event. Any event in 2026 will be based upon our new approach to special events.
What is that?
That's gonna be
It's
our.
2 months until 2026.
Well, our first.
And a lot of
unfortunately, that's what
groups have already met. Like, for example, at our organizational meeting, we need to appoint a fireworks committee as per the resolution from previously. But if the village fireworks are gonna fall under a village special events committee,
Oh, no, I don't think there is a village special event.
right, but
I don't know.
again,
There
I
isn't.
don't think this board has actually made any decisions or put any proposals forward or had any discussion about that for 2026. And I'm just saying, we've already started planning the fireworks.
Our December meeting will be focused on coming up with what we believe should be the special events.
Yeah.
Okay?
2 weeks.
Want to do the motion now?
And you do the
Defend the
motion.
fees?
Are we good? Are we all good with
Yeah.
that conversation? I just want to make sure we don't have any further questions or comments about that.
Are we saying that just for this year or for going forward?
Just this year.
I'll
right?
make a motion to set the fees, the current fees, for the remainder of this year
Just for this event.
for Holiday on the Ave at $25 for vendors.
Second,
Any questions regarding that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I just want to
Anyone-
make sure we have this figured out for the beginning of next year.
Thank you,
Opposed?
George. I second that.
Anybody
Yes.
opposed? Okay.
As the
But we
liaison to
really
special
do have
events,
to get it
please.
fixed.
It's so
Yeah.
confusing, and I say that for are the volunteers who are. stepping up.
Everyone, I know.
Well,
Like,
can I put something in your thinking place since we're actively talking about this?
yes,
Okay, so I know we discussed having a village special events committee that formally, the deeper I've been in the Holiday in the Ave stuff, the more of a mind I am to say, if there's an event that wants to that people want to have happen in the village. Some civic organization has to be the lead on that, in which case we should develop a toolkit or a guide for what a civic organization needs to have in place, how they need to interface with the village, what are the requirements, what are the fees, what are the special event vendor like considerations, like all of that stuff. And basically say, if people want these events in the village, you're going to have to either work with a civic organization to make it happen or form your own civic organization. And here's how you interface with the village in the process of that. Because for me, the processing of money from the village or anything other than just the vendor fees or all that other stuff, I think we should be out of the business of could we go seize a Facebook page? It's like, let's get out of all that. Like the special events that are already occurring in the village are almost already covered entirely by civic organizations. We have the car show is the Elks. Rotary can take over the Memorial Day parade fully, right? And then somebody can take control of Holiday in the Ave. Fireworks is a whole other conversation that I think we're going to ask to lean on your leadership for. But for me, I just think the more involved the village oversight is in some of these special events, the weirder everything gets.
So with that said, we run back into the same problems that we ran into with fireworks. Municipal tax money cannot be spent to defray the cost of private events held by private organizations. It's either a village special event or it is not a village special event. If it is a village special event, then that is where we can go ahead and we can subsidize and use public funds and public resources for our DPW to go in and set the dump trucks for safety, to have our police and police auxiliary. It needs to be a designated village special event.
Right, it can be designated, doesn't mean the village has to run it.
When it's designated, that means those entities cannot use the funds derived from that for anything but that special event. That's an opinion from the New York State Comptroller.
Yeah, and again, I think we can put that all in the requirements under which these events can happen. And if they don't meet all the requirements and they make a formal request to say, let's say somebody wanted to do a brew fest or something, and they said, oh, so-and-so wants to sponsor it, and this is what we want to do. Well, we would have them come in front of this board and say, this is what we want to do. We would say, did you read all of the guidance on that? Are you right? And they would say, yeah, we've satisfied these requirements or whatever. And then there can be a mechanism where the village says, okay, this is a formally sanctioned village event, which means we're now authorizing ourselves, right, to provide those services. So to me, that's different than.
It said business is turning a profit off of this special event. And we are not charging them for police security. That cannot happen, which is how we ended up with the fireworks show.
We should, I'm going to table this only because there's some opinions that need to get.
And honestly, I would like to hear from Lydia on this in
Right.
terms of what the actual legal responsibilities we have in those
And I'm
cases.
gonna give her till the December meeting to
Then
prepare for it.
are we giving the fireworks back to jumping?
We're not having that right now.
But not having that discussion now, but that's essentially the discussion we're having.
Yeah. So I will ask Lydia to be prepared to answer some of the
Sorry,
questions we may have. If anybody has questions and could share them ahead of time, that would be most helpful, I'm quite sure.
This year, we are collecting the donations as we do for the Memorial Day parade, and then we'll pay the expenses.
Mhm.
We haven't received any yet.
Thank you. And they've already committed $2,400. Okay. Your frustration is gonna be over in December.
I've been asking for this conversation since July 2024,
Yep.
when we suddenly took over a fireworks
Yup.
show.
Same. We have to fix this, like one way or another, we have to fix this ASAP.
Regardless of how we do it.
Yes, please.
Mohawk Avenue. All I'm asking for here is if folks are okay with me directing the, Traffic Safety Committee to look into what it would mean to put a time limit on parking on Mohawk Avenue.
Well, not to go back to another conversation that's been sitting idle for quite some time, we need to possibly have the Traffic Safety Committee to identify exactly where and how much parking there is in the village as a whole. Where it is, when can it be accessed? You know, we're talking about limiting parking on Mohawk Avenue, but there's more than just Mohawk Avenue to park on for access to Mohawk Avenue. So
Right, I mean, I can make that part of the request, George.
So I think like we've talked about, you and I, Mayor, about identifying
Yeah.
parking, creating a vehicle to dispense that information to the public of where it is, what you need to do to get from point A to point B. And, you know, kind of dispense that information so that we say, yeah, that, you know, we shouldn't treat Mohawk Avenue different than any other place, in my humble opinion.
Even though that's what all. it is.
So I do
Right.
remember as part of the early on Envision Scotia process, we did a parking inventory. And it was, analyzed by Lavella Associates that I think it was like, there was 80% vacancy for parking. So there is numbers, at least for the, Mohawk Ave corridor, and I do believe that also included Glen Ave and some other cross streets. So we just might need to dig up that report.
Yes.
I do agree with, Trustee Solo talked about having a more comprehensive look at parking, but I think the reality is there are pockets of areas of congestion. Streets around the park where, quite frankly, if we put 2.5 hour parking limitations on James Street without a resident permit, I think the residents on that neighborhood would really value that. However, if you tell them they can't park for 2 hours in front of their own house, that might be a totally different story. Which brings us back to technology, referencing back to what we went through in the last meeting with the presentation. But I know the bid businesses in particular, which is a defined area for Mohawk Ave, have expressed time and time again the need for a 2 hour parking limit. Because oftentimes employees will park in front of a neighboring business that are working a 7-8 hour shift, interfering with customer parking. And since we took 15 spots in the municipal lot, we need to make sure that there is a rotation of spots available in peak areas. So the bid is pushing the 2 hour parking heavy. I think it's worth looking at. I think Mohawk Ave is a good starting point, knowing that we need to identify other areas.
Yeah, and Trustee Solochuk and I did take a walk last year, tried to identify areas, and we did stuff with the Envision Scotia. We'll pull that out as well. But I think I'd like to turn this parking over to our traffic safety to look at.
Is there a representative of the bid on traffic safety, or do they interface with the bid regularly?
We could invite them, but they're not.
I think it'd be good to invite them just for that conversation. No?
I'm not entirely sure it's important to invite. them in.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because, I think the traffic safety elements kind of fall outside of the jurisdiction of the bid. I think the bid is worried about, customer accessibility and things like that. We're not looking at customer availability or the available parking or not parking. We're looking at the fact, how do customers, when they get down to Mohawk Ave, park and not hurt themselves? And then, is there a benefit from a 2 hour limit, in terms of, limiting or enhancing safety? I mean, could increased parking on the street create traffic congestion, which could slow down traffic and potentially save lives? Maybe.
We do sort of sit on the bid along with trustee Cook. I also sit on the traffic safety committee. And share very often with trustee Gray what we're hearing from the bid. And I know Justin does as well. So I think that.
Yeah, if you feel like
representation is
they're.
there. I think they're very
yeah,
well
great.
represented.
Sure.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
think we could, it's a bigger picture than just limiting parking on Mohawk Avenue.
Correct.
When there are many more opportunities to park a short distance away from Mohawk Avenue, which would augment that discussion. But the,
Good place to start.
one side parking overall, I mean, right there at Fifth and Bly is, people park right on either side and you can't get through the intersection because there's people parked on each side of it. So I think there's a discussion throughout the village to have parking restricted to maintain safe passage for both emergency responders and residents alike.
Sounds like more about over there.
Trustee Gray, you have your comments from what, okay. All right, I need to put this into exec session for the purpose of personnel. Can I get a,
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second.
okay, we're gonna go into exec.